Hello everyone, welcome to Wind Down Wednesdays. I'm your host Paula Taylor and this is episode 132. So I am pre-recording this episode. I have a lot of things happening during the week that this is airing. It's actually next week. And so just a quick warning that I am home during the day with my dogs and they are doing construction. So I am hoping we don't get a lot of noise. I say it as a loud plane goes by, but we're just going to go with the flow because that's one of the things we're talking about tonight. So tonight's topic is stillness, and we're going to talk about stillness in a few different ways. We're going to talk about how to navigate stillness because stillness tends to kind of bring up some ego responses in us. And then we're also going to talk about finding movement within stillness. And I'm going to tell you, hopefully not too meanderingly, how this topic came to me. About 3 weeks ago or so now, 2 to 3 weeks ago, we had a show where I talked about how there was a huge influx of energy coming in. And interestingly, if you pay attention to natural cycles, you will notice that as the moon becomes full, the energy coming in increases. We tend to have this increased influx of energy. As the moon wanes, that energy kind of drops. We get to a new moon, we're kind of at a low. The same thing happens with a woman's menstrual cycle. As you approach ovulation, energy tends to increase and then it tends to wane until your cycle starts over. So there are these natural cycles in nature that frankly most of us don't pay much attention to. I think we're starting to get back into understanding these. I think that's why so many people do things around the new moon and the full moon, and we kind of recognize there's these energetic patterns in the earth. There's energetic patterns in our bodies. And so we had this huge influx of energy a few weeks ago, and I talked about how that energy is going to continue to increase. Each of these cycles, there is more energy coming in. We are coming up to something that's going to be a big shift. There's a big change coming. I've talked about that in the last few shows. I'm not going to go into too much detail. And honestly, I don't know exactly what it is. I just know that it's coming. And so the more we can work with energy, the more we understand the underlying patterns in nature, the easier it will be to ride this wave. So the metaphor that came to me, I just came back from the beach. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But the metaphor that came to me was this idea of surfing. So if you're going to surf, there's stages of surfing, and I've only done it once or twice and I'm terrible at it, but if you watch people surf or you listen to people talk about surfing, there's this idea that you've got to wait. There's a waiting period. There's a resting period before you catch this wave and ride it in. And part of that waiting period is understanding what does the movement feel like? What is the next wave that's going to come in? What's the best wave to catch? How do I catch that? How do I catch it in a way that I'm kind of being one with this movement of the ocean so that I don't get knocked over? How do I minimize the energy I'm putting out? How do I maximize the rest in between these sets so that I can keep surfing for longer periods of time? And if you've ever talked to someone or seen an interview with like a professional surfer, they will talk about how meditative it is, how they feel one with the ocean. We are sitting in an ocean of energy, and the energy, just like the physical ocean, responds to the tides. It responds to these changes in the moon, in the phases of the moon, and these changes in our body. And so we just kind of came off this period of huge activity. And I talked about how if we're not practicing, if we don't have a good spiritual practice, then we get knocked over by these waves. If you're not an experienced surfer, if you're not practicing a meditative form of surfing, and you try to get up at the wrong time, that wave is going to knock you down. If you try to ride a wave that's too big for you, that wave's going to knock you down. Sometimes you got to duck under the wave. So all of this spiritual practice, this energetic work that we do, is really training us to learn how to ride these waves. My craniosacral teacher, Heidi Wilson, literally calls her class riding the wave, touching stillness. All of these things are related. We're going to talk about that. So we were in this period of this kind of big expansion, and all this energy was coming in, and it was very intense, and a lot of people kind of got knocked down. I know a lot of people who have been sick. And now we're in this like waning period. So that can also be a little bit disconcerting. So we're going to talk about kind of how do we navigate stillness. So this big influx of energy comes in, and assuming, you're on your game, you're waiting for the wave, you're riding it, you're practicing, you're in this kind of flow state, you ride this big wave of energy. That's kind of what I feel like I just did. This huge wave came in and I was like, all right. And all these things are shifting and kind of happening, and I can see some things on the horizon, and then the wave crashes, and then there's this stillness. And because it's been so ingrained in us that we need to constantly produce, that we need to constantly be active, we don't really understand the stillness part of this. We understand the overwhelm of this big wave coming at us, and sometimes we understand how to ride the wave, how to paddle out in a way that we catch it and we can ride it in. But then there's this period in between that's supposed to be still, that's meant for rest. And a lot of us don't do that. So I just went to the beach, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I think I already said that, but I want to talk first about what happened kind of when I got back, because this is a little bit about this idea of navigating stillness. So I got back, and I'd been gone for 5 days, and I was like, oh, what do I need to catch up on? What do I have clients booked? What do I need to do I'm teaching a class Saturday. There was kind of all these things coming up. And interestingly, or maybe not coincidentally, my schedule today ended up being empty. I didn't have any clients booked. I have some things I needed to do, but instead of getting kind of back in that, like I need to produce and I need to blah, 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 I was like, wait a minute, this whole last few days has been teaching me to navigate this stillness, to be in this stillness, to recognize that even within the stillness, there's movement, and how do I negotiate the movement within the stillness? Instead of looking for this big wave on the horizon that's coming, what if I prepared for that big wave by resting, by being in the stillness, by honoring this message? Hey, look, your calendar's open today. Maybe you don't do all the things today. Maybe you take it easy today. Maybe you take some rest time. Maybe you lay down for a little while. And this is something that came up when I was just on this beach trip. So I went down to Mexico, and my family goes down there about once a year. And my sisters were celebrating their birthday, they're twins. And my mom's birthday was happening, and it was Mother's Day. There was kind of a lot of these little holidays and birthdays and some milestone birthdays. And so they rented this big, beautiful house right on the beach, kind of in this secluded area. And my husband and I have a house in town, and we decided we were going to stay in town and kind of save some money. But we went out to see them every day that they were there. And one of the things that I found really interesting was that the whole time we were there, I was really feeling this call to stillness. And I couldn't exactly articulate why, but then as the pieces kind of fell into place, as they often do, I was like, oh yeah, I think the new moon is tomorrow, which when you're watching this, it will have been 3 or 4 days ago, but we'll still be kind of in this down cycle of energy. And I thought, oh, well, there was this huge influx of energy. We're on this down swing, and then the upswing's coming back. I know there's a lot of change on the horizon. There's a lot of things coming in. There's a lot of activity starting even in the next week that's just going to kind of keep amping up for me and for all of us, because that's kind of how this cycle works. So why don't I enjoy this downtime? Why don't I enjoy this call to really be in stillness and be in silence? And the first thing I'm going to say is that most of us get really triggered by stillness. We're not used to it. And stillness is a really good opportunity for the ego mind to pop up and send all of those fear-based kind of beliefs right into the forefront of our mind. Like today, I was like, oh, I don't have anyone booked. And I thought, oh, why don't I have anyone booked? And some of these scarcity thoughts came up. And then it was like, or maybe I don't have anyone booked because the universe is supporting me because I'm supposed to be resting. And the universe knows what I need. And when I need more abundance, the universe will bring it in. But today is the day for getting some rest, for being in this stillness. So the first thing to recognize is that it can be really hard to even be in that stillness. And I noticed, I was hanging out with my family, and they don't go down to the beach very often. So they were trying to get a lot of stuff in, they were trying to get all their things done. And they tend to be kind of more active than me anyway, especially my sisters. So they were out paddleboarding, and my brother-in-law was fishing, and they were playing games, and my mom was doing crossword puzzles, and there was kind of a lot of activity happening. And I have no judgment about that. I'm just kind of, I'm using it as a foil for what I was being called for, because they kept asking, oh, do you want to play a game? And they were getting a little upset with me because I kept saying, no, I just want to enjoy the beach. I just want to sit here and be. And it was nothing personal. It wasn't that I didn't want to be with them or I didn't want to play, it was more like I was really deeply feeling and honoring that call to stillness. And I was also noticing, so here's what happened. Let me finally get into my little story. So at first I was kind of like, oh, why am I so tired and what's going on? And I started thinking maybe there was something. I thought, oh, maybe I'm getting sick. Everyone I know is sick. But then as I started to really just kind of settle in, it was like, no, I'm just being asked to be still. I'm just being asked to be restful. I'm just being asked to be and not to do for a little while, and like, kind of what a relief, right? And so what I noticed is there was a lot of activity going on around me. So within this kind of stillness that I was feeling, there was all this beautiful motion that was still part of my field because I was in it, even though I wasn't riding those waves. I was watching. You know, if you see a line of surfers out surfing, chances are not all of them are going to take the same wave. Some of them are just going to hang out. Maybe they're watching other surfers. Maybe somebody else chooses to take a wave and you enjoy their ride. And I was really enjoying kind of the activity that was going on around me without feeling like I had to kind of be pulled into riding a wave I wasn't ready to ride, riding a wave that didn't feel good to me. And it really felt kind of very beautiful. And there was this really beautiful flow. And at one point, we had gone down to the beach and we had a little canopy. And so my sisters and my sister-in-law and my mom were playing a game, and my husband and I were just kind of laying on a blanket, and he was sort of just dozing off. And I was sitting there and I could hear the waves. We were really close to the waves and it was so beautiful. And I could hear them playing their game, and there was this like beautiful motion of them enjoying themselves and having fun, and they were rolling dice, and so there was like this rhythmic sound of them rolling the dice, and then there was this beautiful rhythmic sound of the waves moving, and I noticed that like I'm within this stillness. I've been called into this kind of restful state, but that there's movement all around me. There's still waves crashing, you know, even if it's a set you're not choosing to ride, there's things happening around you. And so then I thought, you know, I'm at the beach. It was kind of our last day being at the beach, and I thought I'm gonna do a little bit of grounding. I had been kind of walking up and down the beach, but I was feeling called to kind of walk out toward the water, and the tide was out, so the sand was really nice and kind of wet and just beautiful. And so I walked out, and I just stood there until I was buried about maybe a foot-ish into the sand, 8 inches, like the sand had kind of come up over my ankles, and I was just feeling really anchored and letting myself feel grounded, and I was growing my root system. I shared that episode about extending your root system on Facebook last week. Definitely check that out. That's a great meditation that I had done just before we left for this trip, and so I was really aware of a lot of my connection to the earth and how I wanted to build my roots and extend my roots and really let myself be supported. And so as I was standing there, I was really focused on the stillness and this kind of feeling of getting grounded. But then I noticed, you know, the waves were coming in and out, and I could actually feel the energy of the waves moving in and out. So I put my arms out to the side, and I had my hands facing forward, and I could feel the movement of the energy. I could feel the waves as they kind of came in, as they went back out, and I could feel the movement of the wind against the front of my body, and that was kind of a slower, more sustained movement. And then I could feel the movement of just there were birds flying around, and I could feel the movement of the birds, and I could feel the movement of my family behind me. And I started to just kind of dance with the energy. I could feel this energy moving, and I thought, even in this time where I am choosing to be still and relax and be restful, there is all this movement to be found. And so we have this fear of stillness because we think of it as being stuck sometimes. And absolutely we do get stuck, but that is not the same thing as stillness. Being stuck is usually because we're afraid to move forward. We're in a state of fear. Being stuck is being in a state of fear. Being still is being in a state of love, is being in a state of response. In this craniosacral work that I've been learning, that's pretty much the work is to hold this space of stillness and allow the body to relax and to find these fluid waves within the body that get bound up because we don't create that space for the movement within our stillness, because we have a lot of areas of stuckness in our body because we hold fear and we hold trauma and we hold these old memories. So as I was standing there on the beach and I was feeling this beautiful movement, I was standing still. I wasn't moving. My feet were literally buried in the sand. It was such a beautiful feeling. But the rest of my body started to move. And then I started to just kind of spontaneously do some Qigong exercises. But even within that, it felt like it felt a little forced. It was like you're trying to turn this beautiful natural movement into an exercise, into something you're doing. Just let yourself be. So then I went back to just standing there, and I could feel the movement of the waves. I could feel the movement of the wind. I could feel the movement of the clouds. And it was just this beautiful allowing of this movement within stillness, this recognition that I can be still. I can not do anything. I can allow myself to be. And rather than getting stuck or feeling fearful or feeling guilty because I'm not doing anything, or in my case, I think my family was a little bit hurt that I wasn't playing the games with them. And it wasn't that I didn't want to play with them. It was that I wanted to be with them and still honor the place I was in, this call for being really still. And I was really enjoying their enjoyment. I was listening to them play. At one point, I kind of sat down and I was watching them play this game, and it was kind of a fast-paced game. And they were laughing and kind of getting, a little bit frustrated by how the game was going. But it was a very beautiful kind of just movement that I could enjoy from my space of stillness. It was this beautiful allowing. I allow you to be in your space and enjoy your own energy, whatever it's asking for, just like I was being in my space and just allowing myself to enjoy what I was being called to, which was this stillness. And again, within the stillness, within this rest, which we are so often afraid of because we are told not to rest, we are told that we are bad people if we rest, or we are bad parents, especially, or bad employees if we rest. We've got to be doing. What happens here in this overall cycle is that if we don't take the opportunity to rest when it's presented to us, if we don't ride this kind of ongoing wave that calls for a trough, it calls for some stillness, if we don't wait for the next set of waves to come in, using our surfing analogy, if you try to surf every wave, you are going to get exhausted and probably drown. And you're not going to be very good at it because you're not going to learn from your mistakes. If you just keep going right back out there, there's no time to process. So that stillness, that down trough in the wave, in that kind of moon cycle or the overall cycle of energy in the world, in your body, that is a huge opportunity to prepare yourself so that when the big set does come back in, when that big influx of energy comes back in at the next full moon or whenever it happens, you're ready for it. You've prepared yourself. So if you're being still in this kind of watchful state of fluidity, there's a huge sense of awareness about this. Again, you're not shut down. You're not stuck. That's, I think, what we think sometimes about stillness. If I'm out there and I'm just sitting on my surfboard and I'm watching and I'm waiting and I'm noticing, oh, that wave came by. And each wave that comes by, I can decide, do I want to catch this? Am I ready for this? Am I not ready for this? But when you really get into that flow, the universe will tell you. The waves will tell you. Those professional surfers will tell you. They know when just the right wave comes. And if they're not patient enough, they don't wait for it, they're going to miss it because there's a scarcity thought right there. Oh, what if I miss the best wave? I better take this one in case another one doesn't come along, in case a better one doesn't come along. So as we sit in that kind of trough of lower energy, there's this beautiful opportunity to find the movement there, so that we don't get stuck, because we don't want to get stuck. We want to keep moving. We want to be responsive to change. We know big energy is coming back in at some point, but allowing the rest within that flow means that when the big energy comes back in, we don't get knocked over by that wave like so many of us just did. When the next big wave comes in, we're ready for it because we've been practicing. We've been filling that beautiful dantian, that womb space, that hara space, that sacral chakra. We're resting and we're recharging and we're filling that with this beautiful energy. We're attending to ourselves. When I was standing there on the beach, I could feel so far out in my aura, and it was like I could feel all the beautiful flows there. I could feel that there was some allergies and asthma kind of happening in my chest, and I was able to kind of let that energy move and not get stuck. That watchful waiting is what stillness is all about, and staying in that flow again. So when the big wave comes back in, we know how to ride it. We're ready, we're rested, we're prepared, because it's going to happen. That is the cyclical nature of life. And if you're following the moon cycle, which I didn't do for years and in the past few years have started to, you will notice that as the full moon comes up, then that energy comes up. That's when that wave is probably coming back in. So getting ready for that by allowing the stillness, when the stillness comes in, when that lower energy comes in, letting go of the guilt about that, because that happened to me. I thought, oh, well, I really should play with them and they're going to think I'm not participating, but I absolutely was. I could feel everything they were doing. I was having joy of their joy. And I could see when they were paddleboarding, I could watch them go out and I could watch them come back in. And I could feel just the natural kind of flow, even within this family of people kind of coming apart and then coming together. And then, different people would sit down and we would talk, and then somebody would drift off and do something else. And then my husband and I would kind of leave for the day, and then we'd come back in. And there was this just beautiful flow, even within this weekend of people, just like in the ocean, that maybe the tide's coming in and not everybody's ready for that wave. And so they step away for a little while. They need a little break and then they come back. And then the tide goes out and somebody's going to decide they want to take a little nap or whatever it is. There was just this beautiful flow. And as I got back last night and then this morning, and I thought, oh, well, I have all these things to do, I was able to recognize that I wouldn't be serving myself if I start getting back into that idea of surfing too soon. If I need to sit in my trough and just watch and wait. And I can still find the movement there. There's still this enjoyable flow of sitting on my board waiting for the next set of waves. And this way, when the next set of waves comes in, I'm ready for it. I'm rested. I've been attending to my energy so that when I do get busy, I don't get completely overwhelmed and knocked down by the wave, because I've built up this storage box of energy. There's a literal storage box of energy or bowl of energy in our body, in that sacral chakra. I mentioned before, in Chinese medicine, they call it the dantian. In the yogic tradition, they call it the hara. Some people call it the womb space. And everybody, I don't have a womb anymore, but I still have a womb space. It doesn't matter whether you have an actual womb. That is a space of replenishment. So taking time to replenish that, taking time to check in with your energy when you do have that opportunity for stillness, not getting scared by that, not getting uncomfortable, or recognizing that you're uncomfortable and then allowing it to move through the field, recognizing the thoughts as they come up, recognizing, like, I had some scarcity thoughts, and then it was like, I have to let this go. I have to let this go, because it's not serving me. What's serving me is what the universe is serving me right now, which is this rest and this stillness. And when it starts coming in and the big energy comes back in, I will be ready for it. So in tonight's meditation, we're going to play with this idea of finding some movement in the stillness. We're going to get grounded like I did on the beach and find the stillness and recognize again that can be really triggering, and I will guide you through that. And once we get through that, then we're just going to notice, what's the movement? What's the movement in the room I'm sitting in? What's the movement in the neighborhood around me? What's the movement I've got 3 dogs in this room right now, and they're blessedly being fairly calm, but what's the movement of these other bodies breathing and occupying space with me? And we're just going to allow that. And we're going to allow some stillness, and we're going to do it in a really safe way, so that if you do feel triggered, I will give you some cues to help with that. And as always, if you need to walk away, you can do that and come back later. But I guarantee you that working with this idea of being in stillness, of finding flow in stillness, of not allowing stillness to become stuckness, of not allowing that fear that comes up with stillness to paralyze you, but continuing to stay in the flow of energy, that is going to allow, when this big energy comes back in, you to really flow with that even more. So let's meditate together. So for this meditation, I encourage you to sit up. I think it'll be easier to feel this flow of energy from a sitting position. We've got some beautiful background noise here. We've got some construction trucks in the background. So if that's coming through, that's another thing about stillness, is just allowing whatever's in the space to happen. If there's noise in the space, allow that. Just let that movement come into your field and flow through, and we will work with that in this meditation. So if you're sitting up, get comfortable. Have your feet on the floor or your bottom on the floor. Allow some part of your body to contact the floor. Find a space that's supported. Find a position that feels supported. And then let's take 3 nice big oxytocin breaths like we almost always do. Breathing in through the nose, sighing that breath out with an audible ha sound from high to low. It's difficult to find stillness if we're in that fight, flight, or freeze response. So continue with a few more of those deep oxytocin breaths. You heard my breath catch a little bit there. That's energy moving through. So let that happen. Don't feel bad about that. If you have any little hiccups in your sound, that's just energy moving through. So another nice deep oxytocin breath as you're ready. And then focus on your feet. Imagine that you're standing or sitting on a beach and your feet are buried in warm, beautiful, cool sand. The tide is out, you can see it, you can hear the waves, but you start by just feeling really still, letting that sand kind of firm up around your feet, around your ankles. You can even imagine it coming all the way up to your knees. Feeling really heavy, feeling really relaxed, letting any tension from the day or week start to flow out into that wet sand, and knowing that the earth will just recycle that for the highest good. Start to feel heavy, start to feel relaxed. Allow yourself to become still physically, and notice that mentally, immediately the brain starts talking. That stillness makes the ego uncomfortable. And let that happen. Just allow that. Let the thoughts that come up, come up. Let the fears that come up, come up. And know that you're really buried deeply. You're very supported. Any fears that come up, just look at them and let them go. Imagine that you're hearing these beautiful waves coming in and out. And as these thoughts come up, as these fears come up, just let that wave wash away that fear. It'll be there. It'll be there later. So let it wash away now. And if that imagery is not working for you, just breathe through the fear. Use that beautiful oxytocin breath. As I send some energy in wave-like patterns into your space, let it carry away those thoughts, let it carry away those fears, and know that the thoughts will never stop completely. Stillness does not mean stuckness. It does not mean complete silence. Within the stillness, there is movement, there is sound. In the space I'm in, I can hear construction vehicles beeping. I can hear the movement of those, and I'm just allowing that to become part of my stillness. Stillness does not mean no movement. In this spiritual sense, stillness means allowing. It means allowing yourself to find the rest within the movement. It means allowing your body to feel heavy and relaxed within this movement, within all of the external noise or chaos that's going on around you. You become this beacon of allowing yourself to be still, allowing your body to rest. That is absolutely a recharging aspect of this stillness, letting your body be still, letting your body rest, letting your body recharge. But from that stillness now, start to notice that there's movement within the rest of your energetic field. Even if your feet are still, there's the movement of your heart beating in your chest. There's the movement of your lungs expanding as you breathe in and then contracting as you breathe out. There's the movement of your diaphragm coming down as you breathe in and then up as you breathe out. There's the movement of the actual cerebral spinal fluid within the body, up and down the spine, within the brain. There's the movement in the space around you. Notice how the movement in the room feels. Maybe put your arms or hands out just very gently. Don't invite in any tension here, because movement is the opposite of tension. This beautiful stillness with movement we're looking for actually dispels tension, which is draining. We are recharging. So notice, maybe you feel some movement in the room. Maybe you start to move your hands around. Maybe you're feeling through that auric body, that area around your body. Maybe you're feeling out to the edges of the space, noticing the noises that are coming in from the neighborhood or the building around you, and just letting that be part of this flow. It's like you're dancing. You're just allowing everything around you to be as it is, and you are finding your own small movement and stillness within that. Coming back, just briefly checking in with the feet, the lower body. Notice that they're completely still. Notice the support here, this grounding. Send that root system down through the feet, through the bottom, the base of the spine, and down into the earth. Like tree roots extending not just down, but out into the earth. Widening your base of support here. Let those roots grow at least to the size of the space you're sitting in. If not further, you can grow them out to the edge of your neighborhood or even your city. They grow deep, but they also extend outward, and that support allows us to sway. It allows your tree to sway and not break. So now coming back up the trunk of your body, feel the movement in your torso. And if there's no movement to be had there, that's okay, then be still. Maybe there's movement to be found in your hands and your wrists. Maybe there's movement to be found in your head and neck. Maybe the movement is just around you in that space and you prefer to keep your body still. Whatever is calling to you here, notice that there is movement, that there's actually wave-like movement in the space you're in. Just because we're not sitting right next to the beach doesn't mean that those beautiful waves aren't going in and out, that we aren't sensitive to the changing of the tides as they go in and out, no matter where we are on the planet. Maybe you're near a forest and the trees are breathing, and there's a wave-like movement of that as the trees take in that carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen, just like people. There's a movement. Everywhere in nature, there's a movement. Let yourself just tap into that movement as your body becomes still. Let yourself become still now. If it feels good, you can keep moving if that feels better. But if you're ready, if you're called, come completely still physically. Feel that beautiful base of support, that root system. And then just very slightly maybe move your head and find that movement. Find that movement in your space. Feel that contraction and expansion of the actual earth breathing, of the trees breathing, of the tides moving. And notice that even within this stillness, there is movement. And as thoughts come up, and they will, you might start thinking about the things you need to do next. You might start thinking about how much longer this is going to last. Let those thoughts come up, don't fight them, and notice that they can just be carried into that flow of energy. And you can think, yes, there's that scarcity thought. I don't have enough time. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this because I should be doing something that feels more productive. Let that thought come out of your head and into that movement of the waves, like you threw it into the ocean and it just got carried off into the waves. That thought will come back. So letting it go does no harm. It just allows this movement to continue. Maybe you're having thoughts of anger or frustration. Maybe you feel like this meditation isn't speaking to you. Let those thoughts come up and know that you are here because this is serving you. If you found this, it is serving you. So let those thoughts, let those emotions come up, and then just let this wave of energy carry them away, even if it's just for a few moments before they come back up again. Notice all this beautiful movement. Sometimes we feel stuck in our ways of thinking. We think the same thoughts over and over again. Our brain is trained to do that. But if we allow ourselves to let those thoughts move, to let that wave of energy carry those thoughts away, we make space for new thoughts. We make space for the possibility that we might want to change our thoughts. We make space for the possibility that we can tell ourselves, I have all the time in the world. There is so much time for me to get everything done I need to do. My worth is not tied to what I do, and I deserve time to just be. I deserve time to restore and recharge. I deserve time to rediscover my flow so that as the tides change, as the bigger waves come back in, I am prepared. I can ride those waves with grace and joy. I can let go of some of the fear I've been carrying about change and how my life is changing, how things are moving for me, or how I feel stuck. All of this just carried away now in this beautiful wave of energy flowing through your space, flowing through your body, feeling soothed, feeling supported, feeling safe. Say how, way how, ooh. Say how, way how, hi, oh, say how, oh, yeah, oh. Say how, say how, say how, Say how-e-oh, say how-e-oh, say how-e-oh, say how-e-oh, say how-e-oh, say how-e-oh. And for the last few moments here, just coming fully still, letting your body come still, letting your mind come still as much as it can, but allowing anything to come up that does. Feeling that stillness in every cell of your body and inviting that restoration in, this restorative flow of this stillness coming into every single cell of the body, coming into any areas of tension or illness, coming into any holding patterns, any stagnation, letting that beautiful stillness come fully into your being, allowing anything that's happening outside of you to just continue as you find the stillness. Even in chaos, there is stillness. There is flow. There are these beautiful waves of energy. Let yourself be carried by these waves now. Let yourself be supported and held for the last moment here. I allow myself to be still, and I am supported. I am not scared of stillness because there is so much flow to be found. I allow myself to rest and recharge in the flow of stillness. I allow myself to receive, and I am still. If you're in a safe space and you'd like to do so, this would be a beautiful time to rest, drift off into sleep, or take a nice nap. If you're coming back to the rest of your day or evening, be very slow about it. Ride these waves back up into your conscious mind. Let this motion continue. Carry it with you into the rest of your day, into the rest of your evening, into the rest of your week and month and year. Recognizing that when space is created for us, that is a gift, and we deserve to step into that invitation to be still, to take rest, to recharge and restore, so that when the next set of big waves comes in, we are ready to ride it. We are ready to move forward. We are ready for the changes that come because we are already in that flow. And we have taken the time to restore ourselves. For the last few moments here, place your hands on your chest, or one hand on your chest and one hand on your low belly, that Dantian Hara womb space area, and send this beautiful energetic movement into the body, sending yourself this beautiful energy you've been building through this meditation, through this self-healing session, sending it into the chest, into the heart space, sending it into the low belly, into that sacral chakra, into that beautiful repository of energy, refreshing yourself, restoring yourself here with stillness, coming totally still and just sending that energy to yourself. And allowing yourself to receive it. Allowing yourself to receive this beautiful healing love and light, this restoration. Releasing any tension. Loosening these areas of holding and stagnation that cause dis-ease, that cause illness. And finding that flow within this stillness now. As you're ready, as it feels appropriate, you can gently bring your hands together in front of your heart. Once more, check in with that beautiful extended root system down into the earth. Check in with that area around your body and the space you're in. Notice the shift here. Notice the expansion. And as you're ready, begin to move slowly. Maybe shrugging your shoulders or stretching your head and neck. Maybe rolling your wrists and ankles. Being gentle, being in the flow. Taking at least 2 or 3 deep breaths. You can use the oxytocin breath or just breathe in through the nose. Breathe out through the mouth. Release any stuckness, any fear, any tension for the last few moments here. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Allow yourself to find this flow within the stillness. Allow yourself to find this restoration, this energy of recharge, even when it seems like things aren't moving externally. There is so much flow to be found, and we prepare ourselves for that next big influx of energy that will inevitably come. Have a beautiful rest of your day or evening. Have an amazingly expansive rest of your week, and I will see you for the next episode of Wind Down Wednesdays.